It's early in the morning and I'm lying in bed doing this audio for this particular painting. Now here you can see I'm just mixing some things, mixing a bit of the silver with the gesso so that I can just touch up my painting. Even though I've done the background of everything and, it looks pretty good, I still like to touch up the colours. Because sometimes when you look at it a second or third time, you think, oh, that's not quite what I intended. So there you are, just with my wonderful little brush that has got a lovely tip on it. I'm just touching up the greys. Now, as I'm doing this, I rotate my canvas around. That's why I'm not using an easel at the moment. And I usually find it makes the light hit the painting in a different way and you see things differently. There I go again. While I'm working on this, I start to realise that the change of the colour from the dark at the tip to the white at the bottom is almost like a potama, which is a stairway, where you go from the darkness to the light. Because the tip of the leaf is actually the first part of the leaf to actually emerge from the stem. So it's interesting that it's a journey from darkness to light. I haven't quite figured out how the painting's going to end up looking. So sometimes I feel that the painting talks to me and it tells me what needs to happen. I remember reading about the agony and ecstasy, and it was a story about Michelangelo and how he would do his paintings in the Sistine Chapel. Now, I'm not saying I'm Michelangelo, but I get what he's talking about. That you start off with a blank canvas and the picture's already in it. The job of the artist is to bring that picture out to the surface so that everyone can see. So there I am, darkening the edges, just touching it up nicely. Many thoughts actually enter my head, but mostly I'm in some sort of meditative state. It's quite amazing the type of state you get into mindfully when you are painting. One of my friends who's been following my tutorials felt it was quite a inner spiritual experience to paint. And I said to her, yes, your brain goes into something called the alpha frequency. Here I am with my trusty hairdryer that has never ever dried my hair and I use exclusively for art. On the side, you'll see that I'm opening up a little container, and here I come with my chalk pastels. I love chalk pastels. They can do so many things. Now, I'm cleaning it off because it gets dusty, the chalk pastels that I keep it in a container. The blue I'm going to use to emphasize the blue at the top of the painting, which I've designated the sky. So I flip it around and let's get to it. It's a nice light blue at first, so I'm wanting to create depth. So I'll start with the light blue and I rub it in. With chalk pastels, it's a very dirty process. What one's that one? Oh, that's the dark blue. So there I go, rubbing it in. Now, what you usually find when you change colours, you should really wipe your fingers clean. And I usually have a wet towel next to me. But there I go in there, putting in the light blue and the dark blue. And you can see now how the colours are just jumping out of the canvas. With chalk pastels, you usually find you have to have a workable fixative. And what the fixative does is it stops the chalk pastel from sort of floating away. It sort of solidifies it, but you can still work with it and still smudge it. I actually didn't have any fixative at that particular time, but I did have some makeup stuff that I use to fix my foundation, so that worked. But you can use plain hairspray, not lacquer, but plain hairspray if you've got it. That will, and non-fragrant, that actually helps. There I am touching up the white areas as well. It can be quite an involved process, but I find when I'm painting, if I use my fingers, it feels more intimate. There it is. There's the fixative, the workable fixative. You can find them online. There's different brands. I just happen to like that particular brand. There you go. I'm now going to do the greens. First, I clean off the pastel. And let's go around and do all the dark greens. See how the blue up the top has become quite dark, because I've sprayed it with fixative. It almost acts like a sort of a glaze over the top. There I go, doing the edges, cleaning my fingers again because they get really dirty with chalk pastels. You can use oil pastels, but I just happen to have the chalk pastels, which I've had for years. A lot of what I have bought over the years. I never bought things all at once. I just do little bits at a time. And the thing about chalk pastels is that they last forever. That unlike paints that can go dry, chalk pastels will last for ages. Same with oil pastels. But I find the chalk pastels work well over the top of acrylics, and even with watercolours if you want to use it for that. There you go, spray the pastels with a fixative. See how it makes things quite deeper and gives it depth? Now I'm using my trusty hair dryer, not hairspray. Once upon a time, I never used the hair dryer. I would just let things dry naturally, and I'd have my half-finished canvas just sitting in the lounge. But these days, I'm in for doing things a little bit more quicker. So here we go. I'm just tidying up the leaf with the silver pastel. Now, you can get those silver pastels, gold pastels, bronze pastels. I got mine from the warehouse, but also finding a art shop that stocks those exclusive colours is probably helpful. I know online there's Hobbyland, but there are others as well. And it's really the brands that I'm looking at. So one of the things you can do these days with AI is you can look up the best quality brands. You can get an assessment of what works well, what will last well, and what people recommend and why. It also, you can ask it for a review of particular paints. And I find AI will look up Trustpilot and various other places to give you an idea of what works and what doesn't work. The other way that I learn about things is that I watch other artists. I'm forever looking at their techniques, listening to their hints. So you might want to try doing that as well. I know I'm a little bit meticulous when it comes to doing edges. As you can see, it actually takes time. I think some people, with the internet, when we see things instantly appear, we think that that's what painting is like. But in actual fact, this painting has taken me several hours and several days. And I just do little bits at a time. I was talking with my cousin the other day because she was wondering, how do you get inspired to do things? How do you know what to do, Corrine? I says, what actually happens is I will get partway through a painting and then I'll just put it on the easel, take it into the lounge, and I'll just look at it every morning when I walk past it to go into the kitchen. And then I'll go up close to it, look at it, have a few thoughts. So painting actually takes time. In between also, what I do is I watch other people's videos. I might think, well, I want my painting to look a particular way. How do I do that? There we go. Now you can see I'm dabbing on a thick layer of a mixture of silver paint. And I put a little bit of gesso in it, but it's mostly just the silver paint. And as I told you before, my silver paint is quite old, so it's quite globulous. So I'm putting a thick layer just around the edge of my Silver Fern. It's thick. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do, is to have that swish. I call it swishing. There's probably an artistic name for it, but I just call it the swish. Here we go. I'll get some more. There's my tin. I had some corned beef the other day, and I thought this would be a really cool palette. Actually, when I save up enough money, I want to get a wet palette, but I'll talk to you about that later. There I go, putting on thick globules of paint because I'm going to swish it up. Now, at this stage, I haven't quite figured out how I want it to look. I'm just going with the feel. I'm one of those artists that just goes with the feel about what I want done. One of the things you can do if you're finding the cost of canvases is quite expensive because you're painting all the time, is that I buy a pad of 300 GSM watercolour paper. So it's quite thick, or cardboard, and I practice techniques on those. Like I say to you also about before you start a painting, sketch. Do a sketch of what you're doing, and you can also do that with the watercolour paper. 300 GSM is quite thick, so that means you can do a couple of layers. So I've completed the top half of the Silver Fern doing the swish upwards with the silver paint. It's looking quite good, but first things first, dry off your brush because it's easier to swish it up with a dry brush rather than a wet one. So here I am just mucking around as I do. I'm actually in deep thought, not that you can see it. So I'm going to actually do the globules around the bottom of the Silver Fern and up the side. It does take a bit of thinking. There I go. I've got my hairdryer out there. One of the things that I've noticed is that you've got to be careful with wet paint because I quite often rub my arm over things and it sometimes can muck up your picture. So be very careful of that, but you'll find that out. I found that making mistakes is where I learnt. So there you go. I'm just touching up the edges. Because when you do that whole movement of the swish, it usually covers up just an edge of the outline. And so just to keep it all tidy, I do the edges straight away. Sometimes I can be a bit forgetful, so that's why I try to do things in a particular order. I'm not sure how the ending's going to go with this painting because I'm just really feeling my way through it, and a lot of my art is about looking at the balance, looking at the message that I want to convey, and I imagine how people are going to feel when they look at the painting. Does it inspire them? Do they understand the story? Because with all of my paintings I always write a story. It just is something that I do. So I'm still touching up the edges and turning the painting around. That's why I'm not using an easel, is because I felt with this painting that I needed to twist and turn it. So here I'm going down the other side. And while I'm doing all the edges and everything, I'm thinking now, how am I going to swish the bottom half of the Silver Fern? Because I can't swish it over the top of it because it just would block out all the work that I'd done. So I'm trying to think, that's why I'm just sitting there like that. I'm just thinking and trying to visualize what it is that I want to do. So all of a sudden, I got it. Just by looking and contemplating, it came to me. So I'm just drying up the edges that I had just touched up, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to wreck the work that I've already done. I really should have sped this part up, but I think it's important that I show to you guys that it takes time. That even though I can speed up tutorials and stuff, it doesn't give you all the details. And people have been asking me questions about the details. What do I do here, Kareem? What do I do there? So I thought, well, I'll show you in this particular module. I'm still thinking. Even though I know what I'm going to do, I'm still thinking. So there you go. I'm dipping it in and I'm starting to do the globules around the bottom half. It does take a while. Here's a close-up of the globules. Now I'm just going to go all the way around it, and I've sped this part up because it just takes forever. So there I go doing the globules, and then I'll be doing the swishing down, which you'll see very soon. It's actually been an interesting journey doing this particular one. Now here he goes, swishing down. It actually looks quite cool. It's like it's zooming up, like it's some type of vehicle. So we'll dry it off. And then I've got some other things that I'm going to do to it. This little squeegee thing is what I'm using to draw straight lines down or up and down the painting. I actually got it as a free gift on Temu. There I am, just filling it up with water. I've never used it before, so this is going to be interesting. But what I found that while I was doing lines with the ruler, the paint was actually squashing out too much, and so the line wasn't straight. So I've actually had to wipe some of the lines off and redo them. It's quite unusual what I'm actually doing it. So they're lines with the little dots. So I gave up with the ruler and decided to use some painter's tape because it sits down. The blue one is quite firm with the glue, but you can still peel it off quite easily. So I prefer the blue one, and you can just go to Hammer Hardware to get that. These are the lines that I'm creating, that I'm putting little dots on the lines. So I'm sort of on the last legs of it. I hope you've enjoyed watching me as I've been designing my Silver Fern.